What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Weekly Dose of Dano TV with your host here, Dano, giving you the best content that you're going to find on the internet. Today, we have Mark Papadas here. He is a legend in helping kids in the community and outside the community, and everybody that he touches is just, he just has the Midas touch. He just turns it into gold. And we are going to give you the golden nuggets that you need in order to feel motivated and to really tackle any problem that's going on in your life. And I do say any problem because most things are related in one way or another, and we can all bind it together by the power of our mind, right? So it doesn't matter what happens to us, and Mark is going to give us his golden nuggets on how to overcome anything that's going in our lives. So Mark, what do you have to say to the Positivity Posse before we get started?
Well, I'm just so happy to be here. I love the show. I watched several episodes. I said I'm a new fan and subscriber, and just looking forward to delivering as much value as I possibly can to every person who's watching.
What I tell you, everybody, you better get ready for the value that Mark is going to provide. And Mark, we do thank you for watching and subscribing. And we here at Weekly Dose of Dano TV are a big fan of you as well. And we are excited to hear more about your journey on what it took to become very successful in your field and everything that you touch as well. So to my Positivity Posse, like, comment, share, do whatever you have to do to raise your vibrations, because it's time for another episode of Weekly Dose of Dano TV. Let's get it, everybody. Go. The best time of the week is here, and I'm so excited to be here with you, my Positivity Posse, to give you the golden nuggets, to share the laughs and all the positive energy that we share here on Weekly Dose of Dano TV, and you guys share with us here at the studio, because this wouldn't be possible without you. And I learned just as much from you guys as you probably learned from me and from the guests. Mark is a legend, by the way. If I haven't already said that by the fifth time, now you know. But we are just so excited to come together in order to really show up for ourselves in every area of our lives, right? Because when we leave comments, when we listen to other people and their stories, we can take their ideologies, we can take their strategies, their tips, and everything that they did to become successful and apply it in our own lives as well. And I know there is a myriad of all kinds of content out there, but you know, when you tune in here, we got the good vibes going, we got the energy flowing, and I'm just so excited to be here week in and week out for you guys. I know last month we have just been crushing it every single month. I know we had over 80,000 viewers. I think it was 89,000. So by next month, I'm expecting to crack 90,000. But if we can get 100,000, that would be even greater. And who knows, anything could happen. So thank you guys for all 90,000 of you that we are, coming in week and week out to tune in. I really appreciate every single one of you. And thank you so much for everything. So now we have a lot to fit into this episode, as every single one, but this one we have a lot to cover because Mark really is an expert in everything that he does, but specifically really working with the youth and the next generation. And I know to all my teachers out there, to all my people that work with kids, it seems like they're in a different world, or they're growing up in a way different time than we have. And yes, I know each generation has their trials and tribulations and things that they have to grow through, but this one I just feel like is what these kids are going through and growing through is something that we've never really seen before with the power of technology, right? And speaking about the power of technology, you just never know when stuff like that's going to happen. So let me share with you one quick story that I've learned, and this has been revolutionary, that I want to share with you guys as well. And this kept me up until 2 o'clock in the morning thinking about this. So that's how you know this is about to be great. So this was about last year. there was a position or somebody that I was talking to that wanted to hire me for a position. And I was talking to the guy, and the more that we talked, I was like, okay, give me a little bit more details about this position. It was, working behind the camera, and it was interesting to say the least. So, when I would communicate with this guy, it just seems like he would do like the Charlie Brown, where Lucy, I believe that's her name. She will put the football down, and then Charlie Brown goes to kick the field goal, and she moves it. And I just feel like it was kind of that situation happening over again. This guy was just saying things and wasn't really following through on his word. I'm not. That's not the main point of the story, but it just seemed like I didn't want to be treated that way. And as I was going through it, I was like, like just something's off about this. And it was just giving me a very bad feeling. So last night I took some time to reflect on the situation that happened last year because it popped into my brain. And here's the main lesson that I learned from working with somebody that didn't treat me the way that I deserve to be treated and that I held for myself that standard. And here it is. The reason that most likely, barring physical violence, but the reason that you're angry at people is not because of what the people are doing to you. It's because you are allowing that behavior to happen to you. And we train people the way that we want to be treated, right? So if we are, just meet somebody, or it could be a friend, it can be, a romantic relationship, a family member, whatever it is, we have to make sure that we set these standards and boundaries in the very beginning, because if not, the person could potentially repeat that same action over and over. And as most people do, we kind of progress more and more to see what the limit is. So if they're starting out, with verbal, assault, assault is a pretty strong word, but it could be something as like people that have joke, right? They're like, they'll say something that's like, I guess disrespectful or something that's not really uplifting you. And you check them on and they're like, I was just kidding. But then, if you don't continue to check that person, then they're going to keep on doing that. So, but the main point is, I was thinking about it and I said, wow, I can't believe that I let somebody treat me like that for so long, because it was over the course of like a few months. And I was like, well, there it is. It's not about what other people are doing to us, is what are we allowing to happen to us, right? Because if we speak up for ourselves and we say, we're not going to stand for that, go take that somewhere else, or that's just not for me, then we are setting healthy boundaries for ourselves. And that's eliminating space for people that don't need to be there, to really invite the room for opportunities and to invite space for financial opportunities to come in, for romantic relationships to come in, for business opportunities to come in. The list goes really on and what you're saving and preserving that space for. And obviously, I'm not saying that those things shouldn't happen, because that needed to happen for me to learn that lesson. Because had that not happened, then it would have come in another form, whether it's another person or another business opportunity that somebody would have treated me that way in business or romantic, whatever it is. Life will continue to throw the same things at you over and over again. Probably the first time to teach you that lesson. And then I know a lot of us say it every single time. We say, oh, well, I learned my lesson. That's never going to happen again. Then, if you believe in, the universe or God or whatever you believe in, life throws that same thing at you to say, okay, you say that you've changed. Now we're really going to test you by sending that same thing over and over again until you learn from it. And until you say that's it, or until you've shown yourself and, life that you have grown above it and have overcome it, then that's when it'll stop sending you, that same message and that lesson that you're supposed to learn. And then, you can reap the rewards and the benefits of all the great labors that, you worked on. And that's just my little bit for you guys. It's a lot to cover in such a short amount of time, but ultimately, if you just ignored the ramble of what I was just saying that entire time, or maybe you just tuned in, here it is. Make sure that you're not angry at other people and you don't have that misplaced anger at other people. It's ultimately up to us to really set our boundaries, stick up for ourselves, and to make sure that we are having that confidence and love that we have for ourselves, and that we're showing up for ourselves every single day. So there it is, all wrapped up in one sentence. And I'm really excited to bring Mark Papadas on to the show because he has a nonprofit called I Am for Kids, has done a lot of amazing work, and is very innovative in his field as well. I was looking at some of his content and doing my research, my due diligence, and he has provided something that I've never seen before. And look at that, the microphone's agreeing with me. It's running away because it has all this great energy, right? But no, it's really he is somebody that is the epitome of what it means to be on the Positivity Posse as a team member and as just, you know, a great connection or a great human being on this planet Earth. So everybody, you got to do what you got to do, as we do for all the guests. Drop some heart emojis, some fire emojis, whatever it is that you have to do to welcome Mark Papadas onto Weekly Dose of Dano TV, because we, more so him, but we are about to crush it here on Weekly Dose of Dano TV. Everybody, welcome Mark Papadas. Mark, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, Dano. How about yourself?
Absolutely amazing. We woke up today. We are live. We are sharing this moment right now. Thank you so much for sharing this moment with me and the Positivity Posse. We really appreciate and honor you.
It's a pleasure to be here, just to be able to talk to everybody in the audience and share what we're doing. And like I said, I hope to provide as much value as I possibly can to everybody, give a few people some aha moments, and let's see what we can do.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So now it's time for the meat and the potatoes of everything that you've been waiting for all week, really. I know I've been waiting for it all week. Well, actually, it's been a few months because I know we scheduled this a few months in advance. But thank you so much again for being here. So, Mark, you know, what is it about that maybe some people aren't conscious of it? Or let's piggyback off of what we were just talking about right there about standing up for yourself and having those boundaries. What was there, you just brought up an aha moment. Was there an aha moment where you had to stick up for yourself and realize that, you know, you were doing it to yourself? Or what was that aha moment that you had in order to set positive, healthy boundaries for yourself?
Well, I think there's a few different answers to that. So number one is, you know, a distinction with something that you said during your monologue, and that we talked about how we treat people the way that we want to be treated. And my distinction to that would be, is do we actually treat people the way that we've been taught to be treated, or the way that we've learned to be treated? So if you grew up, or you're constantly in situations where you have the inability or never had the knowledge of how to set those boundaries, how can you set boundaries if you don't know how to do that? And if you were constantly being treated a particular way as you were growing up, when you were in some of your early romantic relationships, for example, that's all you know. So I think that would be the one thing. And the one thing, there's a comedian named Larry Miller. He's been around for a long time, not as active as he used to be, but he used to tell a joke about the old time, you know, and I'm never going to do that again. And then there's always the part, and this time I mean it.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah. And if there's one other thing that I could add there, and I'm a glutton for information, and I love quotes. And there's one that I came across maybe 20 years or so ago, and it's really helped me to not so much define my life, but to help me steer in the path that I know I want to go. And it's by a man by the name of John Honeyfeld. And the quote is, "The only people that you should get even with are those who have helped you." So the people who have wronged you, the people who, you know, aren't abiding by your boundaries, just let them go. Okay, pay them no mind. But those people who help you, those people who bring you along, those people who push you from behind to get to where you need to be, those are the people that you want to get even with, and see how you can be a servant to them.
Of course. And, you know, interestingly enough, two sides of that coin. I know we're going to talk about that for a little bit, but you know, you just mentioned that a lot of people, if somebody, you know, does them wrong, or, you know, does something that they don't really appreciate, then they try their hardest in order to get even with them and get back at them. But I was having this discussion earlier, actually. It's interesting how it's coming up now. It's not in our position or in our power to try to get even with somebody, right? When you leave it to the universe, and what we know, Mark, is that what we give is what we get in our lives. That's the ultimate form of karma, and there's nothing that you have to do. All you have to do is focus on yourself, learn whatever lesson that you gain from that situation, and know that if that person is treating other people that way or going through life in a negative vibration, then they're just going to receive more of that, and they're going to be stuck in that cycle. So, it's terrible that they kind of have to live that way, but it's kind of comforting as well to know that, I don't have to do anything. I just have to keep being myself, keep being positive, focus on what I need to do, and providing love to myself and everybody that I meet. Right. So it's so interesting that you bring that up, and I'm happy that we brought that up, because that's something that it's so easy to kind of get lost into, that negative feeling. And then when I get my hands on you, or whatever the case may be, that can kind of consume us. But on the same side of the token as well, I know I feel like this, and Mark, let me know if you feel like this. The people that want to lift us up and to get even with the people that put us on, or to really accelerate our lives, whether that's mentally, physically, emotionally, all that great stuff, I just feel like we'll never be able to repay them. So it's like, anything that I'm ever going to be able to do, like that, I'm so grateful, because you don't know what you've done for me to lift me up and to propel me forward. And I just feel like there's nothing that I could ever do to repay that. Do you feel like that sometimes?
Not exactly. I may not be able to provide as much back to them as they gave me, but I also don't want to deprive them of the energy of the reciprocity, because there's a lot of people that I know who want to be a servant, right? They want to help you as much as possible, but then when it comes time for you to get even with them and repay them in some way, shape, or form, they're like, no, 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 no. And when you do that, you literally stop the flow of energy that goes between all of us when we're raising that level of energy. That revenge energy is exhausting, but the servant, that giving energy is invigorating. And that's why, it's after 9 o'clock. I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning, but I know what we're going through here, and the people that we're going to be touching and helping tonight, that I'm jacked up. I'm probably not going to be able to get to sleep till midnight or 1 o'clock because I'm so amped up for this.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, the side effects of being on Weekly Dose of Dano TV. I know I experienced it. Like you said, I'm just up really all through the night, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And Mark, man, there's so many things that we need to talk about when it comes to I Am for Kids. And let's start right there. Really, what in your life inspired you to start I Am for Kids? And obviously tell us a little bit about what it is, but was it kind of like an aha moment? Was it, a culmination of different things that you've learned along the way? Maybe you had an experience where you were like, I'm never going to treat anybody else like this. And, I want to teach the kids on how to prevent that. You take it. Tell us all about the origin story of I Am for Kids.
Okay. My joke answer would be yes. But seriously, in terms of where it came, so it was a combination of all those different things. So let's do it chronologically. So I grew up we were latchkey kids. Both my parents had to work. If you had to say, I would say we grew up lower class. So in other words, I never missed any meals or anything like that. I got to play Little League, but I do remember there were several times when we were on food stamps when I was growing up. Both my parents had to work, so I was in the care of my two older brothers. I'm the youngest by 6 years. And one of my brothers used to get his points across with his fists. And there was a particular instance when I was about 7 years old, when my father's brother, who was just coming home from Vietnam, was coming to visit us for the first time. And about a week prior, my brother had beaten me up so bad that I was so bruised that when he saw me for the first time, he asked my parents if I was born with birth defects. And that's something that I still hear in my head to this day. It wasn't so much a driving force, but it's one of those things that it definitely, that upbringing made me get tougher, if you will. And in terms of, I'm a glutton for information. So I can't tell you the last novel that I read, but I'm always reading a book to either make myself better, that I can then take and maybe filter it through and bring it out to the kids that I serve and the families that I serve, et cetera. So I've been into personal development since my late teens. The other part of why I Am for Kids is it's a gift that it took me a while to realize. And the gift is that I am able to instantly connect with kids of all ages. It's the oddest thing. Like I could be walking through the grocery store and there'll be a kid in the cart crying. And as soon as I come around the corner, we make eye contact, they just go, right. And I think it's because they realize I'm just a bigger version of them, right. That we have something in common, but it's something that I've learned to just embrace and roll with. And I used to do what I do now with kids. I used to do it with adults for over a decade before I had my epiphany. And so I've been teaching, in particular, there's a word that's been hijacked these days. And in psychology, it has a meaning, but it doesn't mean the same thing in society these days, and that's identity. So your identity is who you are, right? It's your core set of beliefs, the boundaries that you set for other people, all those different things that make up who you are. And from a psychological standpoint, it's literally the hardest thing in your life to do is to act in a way that is contrary to what your true beliefs of your identity are, to sustain that. You can do that. You can fake it till you make it for a little bit of time, but until you change that core, you can't really change anything about yourself. So one of the people I used to study back in the day was Zig Ziglar. He was one of the OGs of the motivational area, right? And he used to do a lot with salespeople.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do say, I was listening to a recording that he did the other day, and Zig Ziglar's the man.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough that in his later years to share the stage with him once or twice. He was a hell of a man.
Wow.
And one of the things that he was always talking about is that, and he was always speaking to men just because of the society at that time, is that a salesman can never out-earn his belief system. So that if you're only making 20 grand a year, it's because that's what you believe you're worth. And then, so I got into that, and then I started listening to Earl Nightingale, and then I got into Tony Robbins, and I said, if you were to see my bookcase back there, they're all up there. So I started to combine all those different things with the things that I've experienced and gone through in my own life. So I've been teaching this stuff to my kids since they were in the womb, talking to my ex-wife's belly, right? And I saw the things, and I saw how it affected them and the great people that they were becoming even when they were 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. So I'll share with you the epiphany story because I literally get goosebumps every time that I tell it. So my son was playing youth football. The season was over. We were at a local establishment just having a couple pops. And one of my son's coaches came over, and he just started going off on this positive rant about my son, just saying what a great kid he was. He's coachable. He's a natural leader. The other kids follow him, all this stuff on and on and on. And then I did something that we all do, but we never admit, and that I mentally checked out of the conversation because I started to think to myself was, this is amazing. Like, wouldn't it be great if every parent could have these conversations about their kids? What could I do about that? And then I realized he was still talking, so I kind of shook it off and re-engaged in the conversation. But I know that was the spark for what happened later that night. So the evening was over. I go home. I'm in bed. And I'm in that stage of sleep before you hit REM. So I'm just lying there, and literally all of a sudden it was like, boom. I mean, can you see the goosebumps? Right? I was so energized because it's like, dummy, you know this. All you have to do is take the stuff that that you're already teaching and put it into a format that would be engaging and entertaining for kids. And what would that look like? And I'm not particularly a religious person. I do believe in that there's a higher spirit, right? And it was literally just like the light shone in and hit me in the heart, and it just started to download into my head. And unlike other times when I've had amazing ideas in bed, when I said I'll write them down in the morning, and then I wake up in the morning and it's like, oh God, what's that? But I can't remember it. Got out of bed, started writing it all down, and about 80% of what I'm for Kids is today came from that night. And that's the night I shut down my adult training business.
Yeah, wow. And everybody, we talk about it all the time here on Weekly Dose of Dano TV. Make sure you're writing down your great ideas. I'm recording them. It could be a little voice memo. It can be writing it down, whatever it is, because now, even still to this day, like Mark just said, 80% of it came from that one night. And thank you for being in tune and actually writing it down this time, because, that's why we're here right now talking about everything. And Mark, let me say one more thing before we go to a quick commercial break. But I really do appreciate the fact that you were able to take everything that you've learned to teach the younger generation, because like you said, everything is our belief systems. The way that we feel about ourselves, what other people have taught us, maybe it might have been family or friends, to what society tells us is that is not our belief system. Yes, they do have the ability to influence it, but ultimately it is up to us to say, okay, well, that's true and that's not true. And when we do that enough times, and when we take the time to really dive deep as to what our core value is, and to see what, what energy we're vibrating at, then that's when life starts to change at a very beautiful, beautiful rate. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper on how, Mark, you've done that for yourself, or how you teach these kids under the I Am for Kids nonprofit foundation on how to change their belief systems as well. And to everybody, this is what we need. And I'm so happy that we're talking about it here on Weekly Dose of Dano TV. But we just have to hear a quick word from our first sponsor, which is Great Success. Don't go anywhere. Like, share, do whatever you have to do to raise your vibrations, because we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
At Grade Success, it's our job to make sure that your child succeeds in school regardless of the subject or grade level. Our tutors are trained professionals who know how to promote learning and encourage results. Whether you are looking for help with SAT, ACT prep, private and group tutoring, K through 3 reading programs for your child, or educational consulting and college counseling, here at Grade Success, we can help you find the right answer. Visit gradesuccess.com to learn more about our in-person and online program options. Grade Success, where your child's success is our business.
Thank you to Great Success for sponsoring Weekly Dose of Dano TV. And they've been in business for over 25 years. So if you have, I know the school season is coming up, but if you have any kids and children that want to be the best version of themselves academically, please reach out to Great Success, because they will get your student and your child right and in shape mentally. So, Mark, let's talk about what we just left off with, and that's belief systems, because that is what everything kind of stems from, whether we realize it or not. So, Mark, tell us about what your belief systems are, and kind of what maybe like one of the main belief systems that you have to change about yourself was.
Well, I guess if you want to talk about to me, the core belief system for me, the core belief is that every child is born perfect, right? Every child is born with what we need as human beings to be successful, all the character traits, etc. And it's the BS or belief system that they learn from the adults that are around them as they're growing up that actually, makes them what they wind up becoming. There was a meme that I came across recently that I think is a perfect, what's the word I'm looking for? I hate when I can't come up with the right word. Representation of what I'm talking about. You may have seen it. It's a long stretch of wet cement, and then there's a turtle that is walking through it, and there's this long thing, and it's just taken so long. But the quote that I attribute that to is that, to me, a child is very much like that wet cement. Is that everything that comes in contact with that child leaves an impression. So it's up to us to make sure that we shield them from those things that are going to leave the deep impressions that are going to stay there for pretty much throughout their entire lives. That if there is going to be something that is going to go that deep, that's going to be positive, right? That's going to be the crack that's purposely there in the sidewalk, so that when the temperatures change, that the sidewalk can grow and not break, right? But then there's the kind where it's just a flat one, and you get cracks that go like this, and then chunks start to come out. And that's when we wind up with kids who are in bad shape. So that's why, to use that same construction terminology, what I Am for Kids is all about is to helping that wet cement to cure, so that those kids are then hardened from those things that want to come in and want to do damage to them. They just bounce right off, because they've made that mind-body connection with the identity that they've created for themselves. And it's the great thing about the process that I created. It's the same 5-step process, whether you're 8 or 68. Your identity is going to change over time. But one of the things, when I get hired to speak at different corporations, I preach, if you will, don't grow up, right? Keep that there's a difference between being childish and childlike. Keep that childlike quality, because when you're a kid, you're constantly growing. You literally at a cellular level, right? They're growing. Their perspective changes. But the best example I can think of is, when was the last time that you saw a kid quit trying to walk?
Never.
They never do it, right? They fall down, they cry, but what do? Dust themselves off and they get right back up, right? I have a great picture of my grandson, trying to feed himself, right? He's got mac and cheese like this, right? But he's doing it and he loves it. So just, keep those childlike qualities of persistence. Never give up. We all know people, and if there's more than one of you in the room, don't point at them because that would just be rude, who've taken the art, so to speak, of quitting to the next level, to where they don't even try things because they know they're going to fail, right? So keep that persistence. Keep the curiosity, right? When a person loses curiosity, doesn't matter whether you're a kid or an adult, the horizons of your world fold up and then become the walls of your box. And once you're in a box, it's pretty hard to get out.
Yeah, for sure. And, I was going to mention that too. I think imagination is such a big quality and trait that we lose as we go about time, because, I know a big example of this is when people want to become like sports stars or athletes, but, over time, people tell them, oh, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. And, while that may be true, yes, because there are a finite number of positions out there, like if everybody's trying to get into the NBA, which, a lot of people are nowadays, it's not going to be able to work that way. But what is it? It's not actually about being in the NBA that most people want, right? And that's with everything, not just that particular trait or that particular profession, but it's everything, right? If people want to become actors, they want to be rich, or they want to, serve the world and find their purpose, it's not about the actual profession. It's how you're going to feel when you're inside of that profession and when you're in that dream life. So with that imagination that you are experiencing, once you experience actually achieving that goal, if you feel that now, and when you feel that now, that will happen in every single facet of your life, which will ultimately attract more, positive and great experiences into your life. And the more that you can experience and attract those great situations, the better you feel. So it's a great cycle. So Mark, I agree with you 100%. Imagination and curiosity is a big piece of that as well, because it's not about the thing. It's not about the having of that physical thing. It's about the feeling that you will experience once you achieve that goal or that outcome.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention imagination, because that's the third thing that I talk about is in that triad.
I should have shut my mouth. Sorry.
No. It's perfect, because it's a perfect tie-in with where we're talking about your horizons folding up to become your box. Why do you think that kids often love playing with the box that the gift came in more than they love the gift that came in the box? Right? It's because usually that gift has one use, right? It's a basketball for somebody who wanted to play in the NBA. It's this or that, right? And that's the only use that it has. But kids are naturally imaginative. They're naturally ingenious. So that box can be a house, it could be a boat, it could, you could put different things in it, right? They could literally make it anything that they want it to be. And if people who are in business, whether it's their own business or whether they're an employee, if they took that ingenuity mindset to work, they'd be able to find way more things to do with the resources that they have, rather than just kind of going through and droning and doing the same thing over and over every day and being miserable at your job.
Yeah. And, I think that's a big piece of it too. I mean, there's so many pieces that we need to learn about in our lives. Lou actually right here agrees with you. He says that's a fact. 100%. We kind of think and hone in on the things that we don't have in our lives. Like if somebody wants to be, a photographer, they're like, oh, well, I don't have a professional camera and I don't have the best software to edit the pictures and I don't have this and I don't have that. Well, number one, like you said, be curious. Well, how is it that I can achieve the thing that I want? And then you'll start to come up with creative ideas in order to achieve whatever it is that you want. And I feel like that is a huge piece of it as well, is finding and developing that imagination and that curiosity, because that's just like a muscle, right? When you go to the gym, you're not going to be able to lift 200 pounds off the rip. I mean, maybe you are, but if you are able to do that, then you probably want to lift 500 pounds. If you're doing 100 from the rip, then that's probably not your goal. But it's the same thing with working with imagination. It's a muscle that you use in order to get better and better at designing your life. And Mark, let's say there's somebody that's out there that's thinking to themselves, oh, well, that's easy for you guys to say. You're just saying it because you're on camera right now, and it just sounds good. What would you have to say to these people to help them understand that it is a real essential piece of life?
I would just say, look at the results. So once again, we're kind of talking about that whether you consider, when I say positive or negative, I don't mean that in a judgmental way. When I say positive, I mean something that is affirming to yourself and then to others, and negative would be something that is not affirming to yourself and is a detriment to others. Think of the people in your life who are the most successful. Think of the people who have the things that you would like to have, or are living the life that you'd like to live. And then think about whether are they, generally speaking, a positive person or a negative person, right? Are they energetic or are they lethargic? Do they take care of themselves physically or do they let themselves go? What I found is that, generally speaking, the people who have that more quote unquote positive outlook, the more positive actions that they take, those are the people who wind up manifesting the things that they want in their life, opportunities just seem to come to them. Whereas those other people who are taking the negative or detrimental, opportunities seem to run away from them. So
yeah, and it seems like they kind of say the same thing, right? Oh, why do all the good things happen to everybody else but me? Right. Then they go down that victim mindset, and that is just a downward spiral that can easily be avoided if we start to do the research on what it takes, like Mark said, to find somebody that's successful. And it doesn't even have to be somebody that's in your family. Look to somebody that's actually done whatever it is that you want to do, whatever field it is, and learn from them. Because I know a lot of people have, biographies and autobiographies of what their life was like as well. And I can most likely guarantee you that these people didn't have whatever it is that they have right now from the very beginning. And, we all have our shares of trials and things that we have to overcome and get through. But what are the things that they're doing in order to get through them? And I can guarantee that it's not moping, sitting around saying, woe is me. It's getting out there, changing their belief systems. And I believe taking action is a huge piece of the puzzle in the pie. But Mark, I want to talk to you very quickly because we have to hear another word from our second sponsor. But, let's talk about how you actually apply this to I'm for Kids. Can you tell us about one instance that happened where one of your students or somebody that you helped out implemented this and they received, great benefits as a result of changing their belief systems?
Let me take that a little bit more specific in terms of what you were just mentioning, in terms of you don't have to have a role model. So especially when we first started off, we were doing this program in schools that were in places that most people would be afraid to drive into. And so when we were talking about the character traits, because what we're asking them to do is to build that identity for themselves, to build that core essence, and to think of the people in your life. And you can find, I'm confident that you can find, even in the worst person in your life, that they have one character trait that you can admire. It could be that persistence. It could be any number of things. So you don't have to like the bad stuff, but if it's like, okay, here's this one thing, and if that's the only person you have to model yourself after, take those good things. And I like to say it's almost like you mentioned somebody being an actor. It's you're creating the character for yourself to play, and then you're writing the script of how you're going to act. And every once in a while, you're going to have to improvise. But for the most part, as long as you stay in character, the rest is a piece of cake.
I love that. And as we know, it can be more than just acting for that 5 seconds of fame. It can be life-changing, things that we implement into our lives, whether it's changing the power of recognizing and changing the power of our subconscious mind, right? when you recognize that that is a huge piece of the puzzle, then we can start to, flood our conscious mind with it, which will go then into the subconscious mind. You have affirmations, you have meditation, you have journaling. We always kind of mention those same things in different ways, but those three techniques really just create such a fast and powerful change in your life that once you start it, it's just as important as eating, right? Because I know that that's for me, and I know other people that journaling is just as important as drinking water and eating food, because without it, they can't really survive, because they have just become so used to setting that tone throughout the day. And if they don't meet that need, then it's just not going to be as wonderful and amazing as it should be. And Mark, when we come back, I just want to talk about for probably the last third of the show, because there's so much to cover in this, is about the power of kind of labeling what is happening in our lives, right? Because I know you just mentioned it, that you don't like to really say positive or negative, because if we say that everything and recognize that everything is serving us for our greatest good, then what is so negative about it? And that can't really hold us back, right? But we're going to dive deeper into that. Thank you guys so much for commenting and sharing this time with us here on Weekly Dose of Dano TV. Don't go anywhere. We're going to hear a word from our second and third sponsor, and we'll be right back with some more Weekly Dose of Dano TV. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
What we do is very interactive, but very, very powerful, because, look, I was an educator for 30 years. I don't believe in just academic education. The lack of character education, which is what we do, changes a culture, and it doesn't take 3 months or 3 years to do it.
We are the guys that come in that will teach these kids everything that they need in order to really be the best version of themselves and to get the skills to succeed in life, no matter what life throws at them.
It's about keeping our families together.
God bless this organization.
That was our two sponsors, The Power of Choices, which Lou says right here. Shout out to The Power of Choices. He's worked with us before, and our programs that we taught to the kids in his community was absolutely amazing. And I know, big shout out to him, because his team won the championship, and he was the coach of the basketball team. So interesting how basketball has been a theme tonight. But thank you, Lou, for supporting The Power of Choices. And we also have the third sponsor, which was It Takes a Village Housing here in South Jersey, where they help women and children that have been affected by drugs and alcohol become the best versions of themselves, and to give mothers a second chance to be what they were intended to be, which are mothers as well. So thank you to Great Success, The Power of Choices, and It Takes a Village Housing. And now we have to get into the last, third of the show to learn more about I'm for Kids and to learn about what we need to do to live and be the best version of ourselves. So Mark, I love the fact that you do that, how you don't really say positive or negative, because if every situation and every experience is serving us, then what's so negative about what it is that we are experiencing? So how did you come to that realization that, you set the power and we imbue the meaning to everything in our lives? How did you come to realize that?
Well, whether we realize it or not, when something happens around us, especially to us, that subconsciously within that microsecond, our brain asks three different questions. And the first one is, what happened? Right? So it puts its spin, its interpretation on what it just observed, what just happened. The second question that it asks once it figures that out is, okay, what does that mean? Now we get to decide whatever that meaning is. And that's the thing that most people have those patterned responses that it means something bad, right? Because that leads to the third question is, how do I react to what just happened? So if you're consciously aware that your brain asks and answers those three questions, then you get to decide how they're answered. If it was just a button that was pushed, which is what it is with most people, they're just going to get that same reaction every time something happens. And even if it's a good thing that resembled a bad thing that normally happens, they'll treat that good thing as a bad thing because it's so similar to it.
Wow, I love that too. And that could be something as like simple as, not receiving a job opportunity, right? Because that could be a good thing, but coming in the form of a bad thing. And we're using good and bad here loosely, but just for generic terms, just so we can all understand clearly, that could be the blessing that we need. And if we're treating it as a bad thing and going into that place of sadness or anger or negativity, then we're just going to attract more of that. And that lesson that we're supposed to gain from that experience happening, we won't be able to get it because we're not thinking with a clear mind and an open mind as well. So Mark, I love that as well. So in your teachings, what if you find that maybe kids that are experiencing nowadays, what are some things that they are maybe labeling as negative, but is actually really serving them?
That's a good question, because depending on the age group that you're talking about, they're, like you said earlier, they're growing up differently than any other generation has before. And I'm not necessarily saying, well, when I was a kid, that we're not talking like that, right? We're not talking about how, because for the most part, really until the Industrial Revolution, kids weren't thought of as kids. They were just tiny adults, right? And it wasn't until the Industrial Revolution came around, when machines started to do things that people could do, that they decided, okay, well, let's replace these smaller, weaker, slower workers, the kids, and we'll still make the adults work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. But they're getting rid of those kids. That society had to find something to do with the kids, right? That's really when schooling became quote unquote popular and became mandatory after a while. So what they're going through now, with basically being bombarded with all kinds of messages, they're being that, once again, that wet cement, that they don't have any protection from all of those things that are coming to them. So I think it's much, much harder for kids these days to even make a judgment on whether something is going to be positive or negative for them. All they have to go by is those, not asking themselves those three questions. That button gets pushed. And we all know that people online have a tendency to be meaner than they would be in person.
Yeah, and I really want to add one point to that too, is, when we were experiencing things, when we were growing up, we knew that it was 100% authentic, that experience was happening. Yeah. Now, these kids nowadays, they don't know whether something is real or fake, right? Because there's just a ton of fake content that's out there that's maybe scripted. It could be generated by AI. They don't even know, like you just said, that the person that they're actually communicating with could be a real person. That could be a bot. That could be somebody that's posing to be something other than what they actually are, which is known as catfish. So many different things. So I think that's a really big piece too. They don't know if they're experiencing, if it's a real thing or if it's not real, which I feel like that could lead to a big identity crisis. So if that is happening, maybe in your own lives or to a kid that that is experiencing that, just always tell them to really follow their intuition. If they're having a bad notch or a bad hunch, or there's a pit in their stomach, tell them to honor and really trust in that feeling, because we know that our intuition is linked to, Mark, as you said, a higher spirit or a higher power, and that's never going to guide us in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and piggybacking on what you just said is we find that there's a lot of kids today who will react to something that's fake, even about them, as if it was real, just because it's out there where people will see it. And there's, I hate to say it, but there's plenty of stories about, especially young women, high school age girls who have taken their own life because somebody put a fake picture of them nude that they sent out to either put it on social media or sent it out to their friends, even though it wasn't them. And just the embarrassment of being part of that has happened. And that's why the identity piece is so vital, because if you've got that rock solid identity, somebody does something like that, I'm not saying so much that you just blow it off, but that's not me. I'm not worried about that. I know who I am. The people who mean the most to me, they know who I am because I've shared that with them. So this too shall pass.
I love that. I love that you bring that up too, because I know, whether we like to admit it or not, I'm not talking about that case that you just brought up specifically, but if somebody walks up to you on the street and says that you're stupid, and you actually start to identify and believe that, and then you actually respond to them in a negative manner, well, that is because you probably believe, a small part of you, that is true about your own self, because that's ludicrous, right? Why would you even, if somebody's making up lies or saying something that's not true about yourself, why would you even give it the time of day? And I think that's where it might stem from, is that we actually believe, or subconsciously or consciously, we actually believe that may be true. So that's when we start to react to it. So that's why we really have to focus on what goes on in our inner world. Or it doesn't matter what happens on the outside. Like I'm saying, I said it before, I'll say it again, barring like an extreme physical situation, if somebody comes up to you and punches you in the face, you got to have that self-defense, because your life is on the line. But something as simple as like a verbal communication or a verbal exchange, if it's not true, why are you feeding into it? And I just feel like we start to live more so as the outside being reality, when the only true self actually is what goes on in our inner world, and our outer world is just a reflection of how we feel on our inner world. Mark, would you agree with that, or am I just talking a bunch of mumbo jumbo over here?
No, you've pretty much got it spot on. Is kind of going back to those three questions, is most people don't realize that we get to decide for ourselves what all these different things mean. And once you decide how to decide, then there's no stopping you. But the thing is, I think most people don't truly decide. So I like to use the analogy of way back in the day when the Roman armies were going to conquer some foreign land, and when they landed on the shore of that land, they would burn the boats in the harbor, right? There's no losing. If we lose, we're gonna die here, guys. So it's there's no win or go home. We got to win, and this is our new home. So when people make a decide, when they say that they're all in, yet they're still doing this little other thing back here, then they're not really all in, are they? All right, you got to push all your chips into the middle of the table, and then go for it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's those little things too that make the biggest differences in the world, right? Because number one, if we say that we're going to do something, whether it's big or small, and we don't hold ourselves accountable, and we don't actually follow through what we're going to say we're going to do, no matter how big or how small, that is a huge detriment, because we're breaking covenants with ourselves. Yep. And then if we're not honoring that, then we're kind of lying to ourselves. And if we're lying to ourselves, and we lie to other people, and we actually falsely identify with that negative belief system that we are liars, right? Whether we realize it or not, that's going on. And that can be for anything too, because those little advancements, or those little steps that we do take, are not so little, because I promise you they compound over time to be bigger than we could ever imagine on how important that they are. So Mark, I just want to share, there's so much that we had to cover today. I'm so happy that you come on, but I want to give you your shout out as well. I want to share your website. If people wanted to go reach out to you, where can they go to support, I'm for Kids?
So there's two different ways. So one is you can go to www.imforkids.com, and that's our website right there. And then the other part is, if you'd like to hire me to speak, you can go to thebegreatguy.com, and that's where you can get my speaker sheet, see my speaker reel, if you think that I would be good for an event that you're doing. The other thing that I would like to mention that's on the top of the page there is we are developing the world's first animated reality-based TV show for kids. And it's based on the characters that you see on the screen right there. Because each one of those kids is a real kid. And so what the TV show is all about is kids who have gone through the program in their school and the identity that they created for themselves and the impact that it has made through, whether it be in their family, their school, their community, and beyond. And the really amazing thing about a lot of these kids is the fifth step in the identity building process is to live it. In other words, to be the person that that identity that you created for yourself. And the assignment for that is that you have to come up with a project that embodies that identity. And the only rule that we put on it is that it has to benefit somebody other than just yourself. So you can benefit, but somebody else has to as well. And these kids come up with, again, they're so ingenious and imaginative and creative. They come up with these amazing projects. And one of the things I like to end with is that, in case you haven't realized it, I Am for Kids is my I Am project.
Wow. I love that. And I just want to share this website as well, thebegreatguy.com. Here's just a little bit, that's a sizzle reel, little bio, and different things like that. So much to talk about in such a short amount of time. And I think we did a great job in doing it. But Mark, we only have maybe about another minute or two left. So we're going to wrap it up in the same way that we always do here on Weekly Dose of Dano TV. And it's with this final question. You ready for it?
Let's go.
Let's do it. So the question is, if there's somebody right now that's going through their deepest, darkest times, what advice would you have to give to them in order to get out of that rut or that hole that they're in right now?
As somebody who's gone through this in the past, don't do it alone. Ask for help. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Go to the people that you know, love, and trust who will help you. They will step up for you. If you don't have those people, there are plenty of places where you can go to get assistance from local communities, your church, whatever that happens to be. But whatever you do, do not do it alone.
100%. And just to piggyback off of that really quick, since we're talking about the belief systems, there is no shame, and please don't condemn yourself for having those feelings or those thoughts. There's no shame to that, because when we have that condemnation for ourselves and we do have that shame, that's because we are falsely identified with a negative belief system. And I know we're just talking about belief systems this whole time, but that's the final word that I wanted to share with you guys with. Lou says right here, great episode as always. Thank you both. Thank you, Lou, and to the entire Positivity Posse for checking in, bringing your great energy, vibing with us, leaving your thoughts, comments, concerns, questions, stories, and all of the great energy that you always provide every single week in and week out. Mark, thank you so much for coming on to share all of your great ideas, your wisdom, stories, great energy, and everything in between as well. We thank you here on Weekly Dose of Dano TV for tuning in and sharing this special time with us. Mark, closing remarks.
Just thank you for having me, and I just want everybody to always remember to be great.
Awesome. Well, there it is, everybody. We'll see you next week, next Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, for another episode of Weekly Dose of Dano TV. Please be safe this weekend. Make sure you're doing your meditations, your journalings, and ultimately do that introspection to learn what it is that may be holding us back. And as Mark said, we need to redefine those belief systems and just watch to see how much you get blessed and how amazing and special life truly can be. And I'm not just saying it, try it out and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Weekly Dose of Dano TV. Everybody, peace.